AITA for denying my mom access to her grandson because she refuses to help me. My husband and I, 32F, are first-time parents to an 8-month-old son, Jack. I've struggled since he was born. I had a difficult pregnancy. My son had colic, and my maternity leave was short. I was diagnosed with PPD and am getting treatment. My husband and I both have demanding jobs. I'd love to quit, but we can't afford it right now. I don't have many friends in the state where we live, and I'm lonely. My meal is in poor health, and my husband is gone 2 weeks per week helping her. I haven't had a day or evening off since Jack was born. Plus, our home was flooded by a broken pipe 5 months ago. Handling the cleanup has been a nightmare. My mom, 67F, lives 1 hour away and has never once offered to help with anything. We've always had a pretty good relationship. She was a stay-at-home mom and was very loving and devoted to my brother, sister, and me. She's an empty nester and spends her days doing yoga and seeing friends. My mom wants to see the baby if it's very low effort. I asked her a few times if she could babysit or run an errand, but she always says no. Once I called her at the height of my PPD sobbing, saying I was scared to be alone and could she come over. But she had brunch plans. I stopped asking for anything until today. My best friend of 25 plus years is getting married next weekend in State B, which is 2 hours away by plane. I'm the maid of honor and my husband is officiating. Children are not invited because the venue is unsafe. About 7 months ago we started looking for someone to watch Jack. We called everyone we could think of. After a month of searching, we finally found a babysitter in State B through a friend of a friend. Well, the babysitter called on Friday and canceled. I've spent the past 3 days calling childcare agencies with zero luck. I finally explained my desperation to my mom and asked if she could watch Jack for 24 hours. Or I offered to fly my mom to State B with us, get her a hotel room, and she'd then only need to watch him for 5 hours. I was in tears begging her, but my mom said no. She has a yoga class she doesn't want to cancel. It was the straw that broke the camel's back after months of no empathy as I flounder with PPD. I told my mom that since she is never willing to help ever, I will be cutting off all contact, and she won't get to see her grandson. I know my mom is under no obligation to help us, but then she should not expect to see my son. AITA for denying my mom a relationship with her grandson because she never offers to help. NTA, it's one thing to refuse to babysit or run an errand or whatever, but when your child, and the fact you're an adult doesn't matter, calls you crying, saying they're terrified of being alone and are clearly in distress, and you choose brunch. No. Just no. I would have cut my parent off for that right there. I once called my nana asking if she would feed my cat if I went to the psych ward. You know her answer. She immediately agreed. Even though it was completely out of her way, she still did it. You don't ignore family members in crisis. Not unless you are prepared to pay for a funeral. NTA, honestly, I was kind of expecting this to make you sound incredibly entitled. Except you didn't. I kind of get where your mom is coming from. She put into work. She raised her children, likely at the expense of her needs being met, and now she wants to enjoy her golden years and be a low-responsibility grandparent. Good for her, I suppose. But you were literally having a health crisis, and one of the people in your life you should be able to rely on to support you simply disappeared. So in this scenario, your reaction doesn't sound like the actions of someone who's entitled. It sounds like someone who is at the end of their rope and this was the final straw. Well, good for you for drawing a boundary. Is this maybe an overreaction? Maybe. But I also get where you're coming from. And the fact that she couldn't be there for you during a serious health crisis is what kind of did it for me. I would drop brunch plans for an acquaintance if they called me in distress like that. To let my own child suffer like that and chose to sip mimosas. Beyond cruel. Yeah, especially when you realize that being a parent is a lifelong obligation, and the grandma didn't have enough forethought to realize that that means she should be there for Op in her time of need. Children don't ask to be born, their choice is made for them. NTA Sue. NTA. I get that she's done with babies, but to have you calling while in severe mental distress and her response is, "Sorry, I've got a brunch date," is beyond heartless. Honestly, if she's not willing to put in any work with a grandkid, she doesn't get to reap any of the rewards. Is there no way for your siblings to help with the kid? Maybe offer them the same deal. NTA. She's not obligated to help, no. However, she's also demonstrating clearly right now that she simply doesn't care about you. She's treating this whole relationship like a one-way street. Unless you have done the same to her in the past, that would be an exception. In that case, you could try and talk about it, and maybe work past her feelings on both sides.
AITA for calling my fiancé selfish for refusing to let my dad walk me down the aisle. My fiancé, 26 meters and I, 23F, have been together for over 2 years. I don't have a big family, just my dad and my older sister. My dad has always been a single parent, devoting his life for me and my sister, and working over 14+ jobs in the past 6 years to provide for us. I love my dad and we have the best relationship anyone could hope for. However, my fiancé does not get along with him. They have different opinions on so many things. For example, my fiancé one time suggested to my dad to sell the truck he has because it's been sitting there for years. My dad got offended because this is my grandfather's truck and he has no money to get it fixed. Another example, my fiancé got mad at my dad at a party for talking about his struggle after my mom's death and accused him of collecting some apathy points, but dad said that he always talks about it casually. Their recent disagreement was when my dad refused to give my fiancé money to contribute to the wedding. My fiancé complained, but I said that my dad isn't obligated to pay for the wedding. Yesterday, my fiancé told me to look for someone else to walk me down the aisle and asked why. He said that my dad refused to help with the wedding and he should be grateful he's still invited. I got upset and argued that for one, my dad refused to contribute because he has no money, he cannot afford to pay. And two, just like any bride, I want my dad to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day. He threw a fit saying that I was trying to ruin his mood and get him upset on our wedding day, but I called him selfish for wanting to take away the moment I always dreamed of. Sounds cliché, but I'm like that over his disagreements with dad. It's not fair given he and my dad are on great terms. He yelled at me for calling him selfish, although it's our wedding not just mine, and said that I clearly don't give a hoot if he's uncomfortable, then walked out. He's fuming and is insisting I'm being inconsiderate and projecting on him when I called him selfish.
Your fiancé is trying to control you. He sees your father as a threat to his control over you. There is no rational reason as to why he is taking issue with the issues he has been having a go at you over. I have been where you are. Please look up the term coercive control. I wish I had realized this concept sooner. NTA. I don't know. I thought that these disagreements were minor and they will at some point move past them, but it turns out I was wrong. He says it's his wedding too, which is true, but I really can't do this to my dad. I want him to be there with me and not just as a guest. He criticized your dad for how he handled grief. This does not sound like a man who knows how to love. Please reconsider this wedding. It was heartbreaking to read that Op's fiancé accused the dad of collecting sympathy points when openly expressing grief. Grief is hard on anyone, but we also know that most men are not taught to express their emotions and vulnerabilities openly or sharing challenging experiences like losing a partner. The fact that Op's dad has gotten to a place where he can talk about it casually and does so is huge, and fiancé's response was so toxic and problematic. Op, NTA. Run. Don't marry this dude. Your life is yours, but you're also young. Even if you're keen on having kids soon, you have plenty of time. Best of luck to you. Why are you marrying this guy? Sell your truck or you're not my friend. You're grieving too much, too publicly, and then the gall to publicly shame your dad for not grieving to his standards. You will be paying for my wedding. If he wants this to determine his relationships, that's his call. But to ask that you limit your relationships to the people he approves, that's awfully controlling and self-centered. I doubt that your dad is the only person that brings out the self-centered jackass in him. It sounds like you've dismissed an awful lot of his behavior. But if you are going to make the mistake of marrying this jerk, NTA for having your father walk you down the aisle. Wow, not married yet and he's already trying to isolate Op from her family. All of his issues with the dad are just ridiculous. Op, ditch the fiancé, not your dad. He is going to escalate this controlling behavior if you get married to him. This is not a red flag, this is a bright flashing neon sign saying run away. Yeah, don't marry this asshole. Lucky to be invited because he didn't give me money? Run. NTA. AITA for planning on marrying this man. Although admittedly, I'm going with asshole because dangerously oblivious to the red flag parade of signs your control freak fiancé is trying to drive a wedge between you and your family to what cannot possibly be any good purpose isn't an option. NTA 100% just wondering though, if you're so close to your dad, why are you marrying someone who so clearly doesn't respect him? He doesn't have to be best friends with the guy, but some common decency is the bare minimum when you, and by extension your family, will be tied to this man for life. TBH, your fiancé sounds emotionally immature, extremely entitled, and like he's someone who's extremely inconsiderate of you and your wishes, because seriously? Not wanting your own father to walk you down the aisle is ridiculous, so I would honestly rethink this relationship if I was you. Best of luck either way, and if you do go through with the wedding, I'm sure you'll look beautiful as your dad walks you down the aisle. NTA, and every one of the disagreements you listed sound like your fiancé being a jerk and your dad doing nothing wrong. And now your fiancé is trying to prevent you from having an important moment with your father on your wedding day because of petty nonsense. Your fiancé sounds a lot worse than selfish to me.
AITA for not apologizing to my husband after I accidentally sent him texts that weren't meant for him. I have been struggling with my mental health for a while now. After years of putting it off, I finally started therapy this year. It's been eye-opening, stressful, frightening, and enlightening. I've known I struggled with anxiety for years, but with the help of my therapist, we found out that I also have ADHD and am probably on the autism spectrum as well. For the most part, my husband has been supportive, but he still gets frustrated with me because he feels like he's not a priority for me anymore. I have told him many times that I need to focus on myself and that I can't help anyone else unless I help myself first. He doesn't seem to grasp this. We had a big fight on Saturday because he told me that he doesn't feel like a priority to me anymore. He said that he feels like I put our son, my job, our dog, everything else in our lives, then him, as my priority list. He said he constantly feels like an afterthought and that his needs and wants don't matter. I tried to explain all the things he could do to help support me better, to help me get to a place where I have the emotional, physical, and mental energy to be there for him more, but he got pissed because he felt I was invalidating everything he said and just made more work for him. Yesterday, I wanted to take our son to a pumpkin patch, but my husband said he woke up with a bad head cold and just wanted to stay home and rest. I asked him if he could at least get a few things done around the house while I was gone with our son. When we got home, he was just sitting on the couch watching football. The only thing he did was clean the shower, do the dishes, and pick up lunch for us. There was still laundry to be folded, yard work to be done, meal planning, etc. I was not happy. I was texting my mom about the pumpkin patch and kind of venting about my husband not doing things around the house, but I accidentally sent a few of the texts to him instead of my mom. He got pissed when he saw them. He said that he doesn't feel good, just wants to rest, and I'm complaining to other people about him, and that makes him feel like SHT. He said he tried doing a few things, got lightheaded, and just wants to rest, and all I care about is whether or not the clothes are folded. He said this is exactly what he means when he says he feels like he doesn't matter to me. But all I want is a little help around the house so that I don't constantly feel overwhelmed. I have so many things going on inside my head on a daily basis that he doesn't understand. I just want him to be able to take some things off my plate without me having to ask him. He barely spoke to me the rest of the day, and this morning he wouldn't even give me a hug before he took our son to daycare. I've spent the morning crying because he's making me feel guilty instead of helping me.
AITA. That sounds like a lot for someone who wasn't feeling well enough to go on the fun outing, when that would have presented a perfect opportunity for the quality time he wants more of. Seriously, you want someone with a head cold doing yard work when the weather's turned cold enough for a pumpkin patch to sound like a good idea? How long do you want him laid up for? But okay. Fine. Let's pretend your grievances were entirely justified. If you don't actually stand behind them enough that you would never have wanted him finding out what you said, why were you talking like that to anyone else? And if you are so fed up with him that you don't care, don't you think maybe you'd be better served taking that to a counselor than your mom? AITA. He was ill, he did what he could. I get needing to focus on yourself, but if your marriage is a priority to you, then you need to include it on your priority list. I think the two of you could do with some couples counseling to help mediate this difficult period. AITA. He was sick and did several things around the house for you while you were gone, and what does he get? Yet another fight and knowledge that you're talking about him behind his back. It sounds like nothing is good enough. And did you seriously expect he'd have time to clean bathrooms, do dishes, do laundry, do the yard work, get lunch, and meal plan while you were at a pumpkin patch? That's a ton of chores and completely unreasonable even if he felt 100%. I'm unwell and expect my husband to be completely supportive. I then was not supportive when my husband was unwell, and was stupid enough to get caught complaining about him. AITA. Your husband tells you he feels like an afterthought, and your response is to make it all about you and how he can support you. Then when he takes a break for a day because he doesn't feel well, which it sounds like you have been doing plenty of yourself, you get upset. Having a partner who is dealing with mental health issues can be physical and mentally exhausting too, and you may have just needed to recharge his batteries. I get it. I have been in a really dark place with my mental health, so I really understand having an extremely limited energy pool to draw from, and having to make decisions about priorities. But your husband's needs don't stop mattering just because you are hurting. You need to work with him and your therapist to help meet his needs too. Maybe carving out some scheduled time together will help.